Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Inside Guns with your host, me, the Yankee Marshal. Today I want to address a question that was asked of me in a live chat the other day. One of my viewers asked, what do I think of the military adopting the P320, M17, and M18 from Sig Sauer as the service duty handgun? Well, I actually have no problem with that. I like that gun. I think it's a great gun for military use, and I'll explain more why as we go on here. And I do have one problem with it, and I'll explain more about that here in a minute, though. But as far as, is it a good gun for the military? Of course it is. Now, I know a lot of people are going to start yelling, that's not the military's primary weapon, and they'll start saying things like Glock and Special Forces and Glock and these people. Whatever. Some Special Forces people can carry whatever they want. But primarily, the M17, M18 is the official handgun of every branch of the military service, with the exception of the Coast Guard. And I'm really not sure they count as military. I'm iffy about the Air Force, especially iffy about the Coast Guard. But that's just the case. The M17, M18, that's the handgun of the United States military, pretty much, across the board. Now, some people say, well, they shouldn't use that gun because it's just not reliable and it's not safe because of the lawsuits they've been hearing about from police officers that say they just went off as it was sitting on my desk or it was in my holster or whatever. And those are all BS. Total BS. I've covered that before. The problem in these cases is not the gun. It's a bunch of dumbass police officers that are incompetent, irresponsible, and don't know how to handle firearms. And the cases that are happening now are very similar to things that happened back when they first adopted Glocks. Same things were happening, blamed the guns. The biggest difference now is there's big money anti-gun groups that will pay for their lawsuits against the manufacturers, promising them a payday and bankrupting the big gun manufacturers. So that's the only reason these lawsuits have any traction right now. It's not anything different than what happened a long time ago. The only difference now is what gun these irresponsible people have been issued. And there's actually evidence to show that it's not the gun, it's the people, but they still want the lawsuits to go through to bankrupt the industry. In fact, one of the cases where a police sergeant said he just set it down on his desk and it went off. Well, the video surveillance of the precinct room he was in shows he very clearly was holding it in his hand with the finger on the trigger, and as he did this, it went off, and then he just dropped it on the desk. So he pulled the trigger. The one officer who claims it was in her holster and it just went off, it was actually in her purse, and it wasn't in a holster when it went off. It was in a purse with other loose items which she was swinging around, and it went off when she banged it on the side of a desk, which probably pushed something into the trigger and pushed the trigger. Pulled the trigger, we should say, I guess. No, I guess it'd be pushing it. And that's what happened there. Another case of irresponsible behavior, incompetence. And the only people you hear this from are like the cops and a bunch of unscrupulous people on the internet who want to profit off of controversy, and they just are willing to help the anti-gunners as long as it gets them views and makes them money. But as far as the gun being unreliable or unsafe, it is not. It is perfectly safe. A lot of people, a lot of Glock tards, have spent a lot of time and effort trying to make the M17, M18, and the P320 in general look unsafe, and they fail every time. They've done things up to sticking them in vices and beating them with a sledgehammer multiple times until they can break the components and make them go off. Not exactly realistic, but they think that means something. But, stupid people do stupid things. So the gun is not unsafe. It is not unreliable. It's safe, reliable. It's one of the most common handguns in use right now. If it was unsafe and unreliable, you'd be seeing a lot more going on, but you don't. So the gun is perfectly safe, perfectly reliable, and because of that, I think it's a great gun for the military. Now, a lot of people don't like the fact that it was polymer. It's pretty much the first polymer gun. They think the military should get better than polymer. Well, polymer doesn't mean bad. It just means it's 4 different things. It's meant to be lightweight and be a good duty gun. That's what polymer guns are for. So where would they be used more in duty than in the military? Well, law enforcement, of course, because military really doesn't use their handgun very much. There's kind of a saying in the military that if you're using your handgun, when I was in, at least this was a saying, if you're using your handgun, you better save a round for yourself because you're in a bad situation. So, and I only got a handgun. I was MI. And usually nowadays, the only people who really rely on a handgun as their only weapon is officers in combat and MI, things like that, military police, etc. But most soldiers, they have their rifle. Their handgun is for backup or for close quarters. It's a secondary firearm for them. And these are great for that. If they're going to be shooting 9mm, shooting it out of a polymer gun is just as good as shooting it out of a Beretta. And in fact, some ways it's better. Like I said, it's lighter. Also, it's cheaper. It saves the taxpayer money. They're a lot cheaper. And also, not only are they cheaper as a whole, but because the SIG gun is modular, if a soldier has an accident and cracks a frame, it's like $20 to replace the frame. That's it. We can replace them for like $25, $30 as civilians. So I'm sure it's cheaper for the military. So cost-wise, it's so much cheaper to fix these guns. The slides themselves are cheaper and the frames are interchangeable. It's the FCU that matters, the firing control unit. So in the long run, saves a ton of money. You have a good, reliable, solid, capable gun that's cheaper, easier to repair, just better all the way around. I don't think the military needs fancy handguns. Unless, of course, you're, full dress and you want a fancy handgun. But as far as the general duty weapon, the M17, the M18 are a great choice. Now, would there be choices that I would rather have? Well, yeah, I'd rather have a Gen 5 Glock 20 myself if it was me. But, it isn't me, for one, and I'm not getting to choose my own gun. I'm a soldier if I'm in there. If I was getting to choose my own gun and they would just give me a stipend, maybe I'd get the Glock. But in the military, you need to have that cross-compatibility. That's why you can't just let people choose their gun. You need to have the same parts for the same people. That way, if you need to send parts to a unit that's in the field, you know what part you need to send, and you just send as many of those as you can. So everybody carries the same thing, they use the same parts, etc. So it has to be pretty much the same thing. So that's why I think it's a fine choice. Wouldn't be my first choice, but it is just fine. The only problem I actually have with it, when people ask me do I have any problem with it whatsoever, is that it has a safety. I don't like the fact that the guns have safeties. Now, a lot of people, especially the higher ups in the military, they go, oh, we have to have safety because we get into a lot of high-stress situations, especially like in close quarters combat where their gun is drawn, but an itchy trigger finger can cause trouble, in high stress. And I'm like, well, that makes no sense because if you're in a high-stress situation where it means you're in danger and you're in enough danger that you've got your weapon drawn and you leave the safety on, well, you're putting yourself and the people you're helping protect at risk. That's a stupid move. So I don't even like the safeties being there. I would just rather it be a regular P320 with no safety. It could be the M17, M18, whatever, but I just don't want the safety. You can get them without a safety, and I think the military should have them without a safety. Because the safety to me just doesn't make sense. If you can't trust a soldier, who can you trust? I mean, they give them to cops. Of course, we see what happens when they give them to cops. But I'd like to think the military is better with their firearms, with their weapons, than the police officers are. So other than that, other than the fact that it's got a safety, I think it's fine. The P320 is one of the best polymer guns on the market. It's right up there with any Glock, any H&K, or HK nowadays. Any of those guns, FN, they're all good. There have been a lot of guns that they could have chosen, but they chose the SIG, and I'm sure they had their reasons. And I can't find any fault with the choice, like I said, other than the safety. So I have no problem with the SIG being the service gun. Like I said, it's reliable, it's capable, it's safe enough, it is cheap, it's easy to repair. It's just got everything going for it. The Glocks aren't modular, so they'd lose out in a lot of cases. Just on that alone, they're not as easy to repair, not as cheap to repair. So I think the M17, M18 is a great choice for a military service weapon. And like I said, pretty much everyone has it except for the Coast Guard. There's not a ton of complaints I'm seeing coming from the military. When the M9s came into use, there was so many people complaining when they replaced the 1911s. I mean, you'd have thought it was the end of the world. I'm not seeing that with these guns. Mostly the problem I'm seeing is people that are just Glock fanatics. I like Glock too, but we have fanatics. Upset because their gun didn't win, when their gun doesn't usually meet the criteria even. So, of course, it didn't win. But that's usually what it is. It's a bunch of sour grapes. I, for one, like I said, am perfectly fine with the SIG M17 and M18 being the handgun of the U.S. Armed Forces. Today, I want to ask a question, not ask a question, answer a question. If I was asking questions, this would be pretty stupid. Why am I talking still? Good Lord, now it's not focusing at all. Or the wrong choice when they chose the gun that they did choose. Now, a lot of Special Forces guys can carry what they want, but the official gun of most of branches of the... Why did I f that up so bad? Today, I want to address a question that came into me. God damn, don't say came into me. Today, I want to ask, not ask, answer, god damn, that there is a safety on it. I went 6 minutes into this, and I haven't covered anything. I'm about to give up. Hey everybody, Yankee here. Just wanting to remind everyone, if you want to support this channel and the programs that we sponsor, or you just want some official Yankee Marshall Posse merchandise, you can go over to tympistolproject.com, and there is a wide selection of merchandise over there. Pick yourself out something, buy yourself something nice. Anytime you buy a t-shirt, you get 2 entries into this month's friend drawing. You buy any other item, you get 1 entry into this month's friend drawing, and all profits go to the Pets and Vets Fund that we support. So go on over, get yourself some merch, help save an animal in need, and maybe win a prize. Hey everyone, Yankee here. You know, in my videos, we often cover some complicated subjects with a lot of gray area. So if you would like to further discuss anything said in my videos, please join us in one of my live chats. Live chats are held most days at 6 p.m. Pacific time, except for Monday and Wednesday when they are at 5 p.m. Pacific. There is a clickable link to the live chats in the upper right-hand corner of this video. If you disagree with anything I've said in a video, feel free to participate in Spank the Yank. You can come on the live discussion panel and let me know face-to-face how I was wrong.